It's death and divorce, right? Two awful words, but are things that happen in life, right? So we're going to talk about those. Let's actually talk about divorce first. Let's talk about that one first, Melissa. When you're buying and selling homes, specifically selling, let's talk about selling, right? Because this usually is a result of divorce. If you're going through a divorce, you've started or you're going through it, like, what do you need to know? What should you know? How do you prepare for this? What do you need to know if you're selling a home?
Generally speaking, when you are going through a divorce, you have to identify, are one of the parties able to financially maintain the premises without the other? Because then you may be entertaining an idea of prospective buyout. Very largely these days, because everything is so expensive, we are finding that most of the parties cannot afford on a solo income to keep the property, right? So in that case, it's really a function of determining sale. So in some instances, the parties may decide to go all the way down the divorce proceedings and then sell the real estate, which is very common practice. I think that the place where I see parties trying to keep the property the most is when you have minor children, because they're trying to create sort of a stability for the family or for the children. But I think generally speaking, when we're facing folks who are older or childless couples, generally speaking, they're just making the decision to sell the asset. And that's actually something that I see happen on occasion as well, where the parties will decide, hey, yeah, we have this house. Yeah, we've got some bank accounts, but it's a very amicable divorce, which is fairly unusual. It does happen. They'll actually make the decision to sell the property together and then move forward with the divorce proceedings after they've effectively, divested themselves of that asset. Like I said, it's not as common practice, but that's another avenue that we do see explored.
Let's, kind of segue into death. Unfortunately, the situation, if you have to sell a property after somebody has passed away, or, if it's an estate, there's a lot of similarities between there. But let's talk about what people need to know if they're in charge of an estate or if somebody has passed away, or, what do they need to know when they're selling a property, Melissa?
So if somebody has passed away and they own the property individually, that tells us that the property is going to have to move forward through a probate administration, because that's essentially what's being used to retitle the asset out of their name into the family's names or into a third party's name in the event of a sale. So it's probably not enough time to get into all of the intricacies of what goes into a probate. But what I can tell you is that if you are handling an estate on behalf of a will, like an executor, or if your family member or loved one has passed without a will, it would be an administration. In either case, you really want to have an attorney there by your side to make sure that you understand what your roles are as a fiduciary, because when you're serving in that position, there are certain things you can and cannot do with the funds, and you want somebody there who's preparing those documents with you, counseling you towards what you can and can't do, providing you with timelines. Rhode Island, for example, the estate has to be open a minimum of 6 months before any of the funds are able to be distributed. Now, reimbursements are different, right? If you or a family member had to cover the funeral bill, you may want to get reimbursement, assuming that the estate has liquid assets or you've sold the real estate and now you have access to funds. But generally speaking, the general distribution of the estate proceeds, the pot at the end, if you will, has to stay untouched for a minimum of 6 months. I think both of these transactions or types of transactions, when you're faced with a divorce or a death, highlights and underscores the importance of when you have these complex real estate transactions. You certainly can't do it without a real estate advisor, because look at all the support they're offering. And you definitely should not be doing it without an attorney who's well versed in those areas, because again, you're going to miss something or perhaps put yourself in some tough spots if you don't have that counsel.